Did you know that there's a 600-meter tall skyscraper that's currently abandoned? Or that Malaysia has invested $9 billion in a megacity that's yet to be used and remains completely abandoned to this day? In today's video, we'll explore some of the most useless megaprojects in history. But before we continue, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on any of our content. Number 4. Ciudad Real, Central Airport, Spain. Spain is the second most visited country in the world, welcoming over 83 million international visitors every year. As a result, the Spanish government came up with the idea of building Ciudad Real Central Airport. The airport was built in the central Spanish region of Castilla-La Mancha, with the goal of serving both domestic and foreign tourists traveling to central Spain. The new airport was predicted to provide a viable alternative to Madrid's already incredibly packed Adolfo Suárez Madrid-Barajas Airport. The new airport could accommodate 2 million people annually and had one of the longest runways in all of Europe. In comparison to Madrid's 83.7 million annual visitors, that's a comparatively small figure. However, there were already plans in place to increase the airport's capacity to 10 million passengers per year. The project had a total cost of $1.3 billion and was financed through a combination of public and private funds. In 2012, after a few years of operation, all strategies to grow the airport were put on hold when the project's sponsor filed for bankruptcy. One of the primary reasons for the airport's failure was its location. While it was called the Central Airport, the airport was built in a relatively remote area 200 kilometers away from Madrid, which made it difficult to attract passengers and airlines. Most travelers dislike making a long trip to a remote location, and the majority of major airlines chose to operate their flights from the nation's capital. As a result, the newly constructed airport had only one small-time airline operating there within the first year of its inauguration. By mid-2012, the airport owed $350 million, and after failing to attract major airlines and travelers, it entered auction and was offered for sale in 2013. The popular British television show Top Gear filmed an episode at the Ciudad Real Central Airport. The episode was well received by the audience and helped raise the profile of the airport. However, a few years later, in 2019, the airport was ultimately sold after several auctions, including one that featured an outrageous $12,000 bid, failed. The Ciudad Real Airport received a lifeline as businesses collapsed and income dropped as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. The airport had 65 aircraft parked there in 2020, and there were expansion plans to create a storage facility for more than 300 aircraft. Today, the airport remains abandoned and serves as a symbol of the challenges and risks associated with large-scale infrastructure projects. Number 3. The tallest abandoned building in the world. The Golden Finance 117 in Tianjin, China, is the tallest abandoned skyscraper in the entire world, standing at a staggering 600 meters. This building holds the Guinness World Record for the world's tallest unoccupied building, a record that, quite frankly, China isn't proud of holding. If it was completed, the tower would have been China's third and the world's sixth tallest skyscraper. The initial blueprint for the tower's design was made in the early 2000s, when numerous Chinese cities were all vying for recognition and fame abroad through rapid infrastructure development. Billionaire Pat Sutong, chairman of the Hong Kong-based investment firm Golden Financial Holdings, was the brain behind the initiative. Numerous residential and commercial buildings, in addition to the centerpiece skyscraper, were planned for the area. The tower would have 128 stories above ground, 117 of which would be divided between residential and commercial use. The 11 additional floors were to be reserved for operational and mechanical systems. The design for Golden Finance 117 also called for a 3-story building with a distinctive diamond-shaped roof. At a height of 580 meters above the ground, this area would hold the highest observation deck, swimming pool, and restaurant in the world. With an initial cost of 4 billion yuan, approximately $580 million, the tower's construction got underway in 2008. The tower's development was put on hold as Golden temporarily lowered expenditures elsewhere. Ultimately, in 2011, after the market had steadied, work on the building resumed, and its opening date was rescheduled to 2018. The skyscraper's construction topped out in September 2015. Unfortunately for Ciudad and the Golden firm, things were about to go from bad to worse. Golden's share price fell by as much as 65% in mid-2015, when the Chinese stock market crashed. Ciudad personally lost as much as $13 billion as a result of his significant interest in the business. 3 months later, Golden abruptly put a halt to the project's construction. Even though it appears that Golden Finance 117's failure was caused by bad market timing and funding problems, that is not the whole story. The building was destined to fail from the start of construction. Everything about the project, including the upscale amenities and the thought of residing in one of the world's highest buildings, depicted Golden Finance 117 as a luxurious residence, something only the wealthy elite could afford. Even if the project had been finished, Tianjin couldn't have supported the skyscraper's intended market. Nobody who lived near the project could actually afford what it was trying to offer. And it's uncertain whether wealthy Chinese would have moved to Tianjin from far away just to live in a super tall skyscraper. As it stands today, the building remains unfinished. The contractor for the project has completely abandoned the construction site, taking all workers and equipment with him. The Golden Finance 117 now stands tall above Tianjin and remains a useless hunk of concrete that has never been occupied. The Golden Group was the recipient of numerous legal challenges and lawsuits in 2019 from investors and creditors, including one creditor who allegedly launched a lawsuit to recoup debts totaling more than $1 billion. On the other hand, a number of sources indicate that the Golden Group and its creditors have come to a resolution to restructure their debt, which would enable the tower's construction to pick up again. However, neither the tower's status nor its completion date have received any formal announcements. The tower's total cost is estimated to be $2.4 billion when completed. So, who knows? Maybe it will remain unoccupied for years to come. Number 2. Burj Al Babas. Burj Al Babas is located south of the picturesque city of Mudurnu in northwestern Turkey. The mountainous landscape is decorated with hundreds of abandoned chateau-style homes, with not a single person living in any of them. Burj Al Babas was supposed to be a luxury residential development, catering to wealthy oil executives, but it never saw the light of day. Construction on the residential complex began in 2014 and was scheduled to finish 4 years later. The plan was to create a total of 732 identical-looking villas to be rented out or sold to wealthy individuals. Each villa would have 3 stories, its own balcony, a spiral staircase leading towards it, traditional Turkish interiors, and the option to install an indoor pool in the basement. Additionally, the project also included a central shopping center that would house shops, restaurants, health and beauty centers, a cinema, and a mosque. On top of all that, the site for Burj Al Babas construction is also located above a geothermal spring. Therefore, traditional Turkish baths were planned to be constructed above the hot springs as part of the many amenities the project offered its potential buyers. Each villa was reportedly priced between $400,000 and $500,000. The thought was that the project's target market, wealthy Gulf investors, would be interested in the properties. The project initially appeared to be progressing rather well, with investors having already provided funding for about half of all the homes. But by 2018, just 587 of the 732 villas that were originally built had actually been completed. Investors in Burj Al Babas were adversely impacted by the abrupt decline in oil prices that occurred that same year when the global oil market crashed. The fact that Turkey's economy was already declining and had the highest inflation rate in 15 years made matters worse. The majority of Burj Al Babas customers quickly pulled out of the project, as Turkey's building industry saw a severe decline as a result of the nation's economic crisis. The business behind the Burj Al Babas found itself $27 million in debt, and in deep danger with a project estimated at $200 million and little to no sales. Subsequently, a Turkish court ordered the company to declare bankruptcy and halt work on the project due to its predicament. The developer attempted to overturn this decision and claimed that they could mitigate the situation by selling just 100 villas to cover their debt, stating, "We only need to sell 100 villas to pay off our debt. I believe we can get this crisis over in 4 to 5 months and partially inaugurate the project in 2019. This, of course, never happened. And up to this day, Burj Al Babas remains a ghost town amidst the picturesque landscape of northwestern Turkey. The future of the project was questionable in 2019 when the developer Ciudad Group filed for bankruptcy due to its failure to pay its debts. The project was said to be offered for sale in 2020 with a $200 million starting bid. It's unknown whether the project has been sold or what its future holds. The land will remain unoccupied for the time being, with just hundreds of villas that all look the same. Number 1. Forest City, Malaysia. We've covered abandoned airports, skyscrapers, and apartment projects. However, next up on our list is a green, smart, futuristic metropolis that began to be built around an artificial forest environment on 4 artificial islands. The project spans an area of about 1,386 acres and is situated along the Strait of Johor, facing Singapore. Forest City's location was strategically chosen to attract investors looking to profit from its close proximity to Singapore, an independent city-state. Singapore's economy is booming, and it has the second busiest port in the world. By connecting Forest City with Singapore via the Second Link Bridge, the developers have already reduced the travel time between the two cities to just 20 minutes. Additionally, Forest City will have a customs facility of its own, allowing citizens to easily travel to Singapore and return. Many eco-friendly improvements are said to be incorporated into the design. Buildings in Forest City will have green rooftops and vertical gardens, creating the feeling of being in the jungle. The layout of city streets will have numerous layers, with the lower layer serving as the roadway and parking areas, and the upper layer housing recreational areas, stadiums, and transportation hubs. The developer, Country Garden Pacific View, plans to complete the metropolis, which will be entirely powered by renewable energy, by 2035, at an estimated cost of $100 billion. Forest City seems like a revolutionary idea. However, this extremely ambitious undertaking is not devoid of challenges. Already, a plethora of political and economic barriers are impeding its development. Chinese citizens essentially enjoyed a free pass to the city during the first few years of construction because the project is primarily sponsored by China. Rich Chinese investors raced to Forest City as a result, since they couldn't afford the skyrocketing rates of flats in their own nation. By 2019, Chinese people owned 80% of the properties. The few new schools that have opened in the neighborhood are now offering Mandarin classes, and even the street signs are in Mandarin. Since these apartments are priced exclusively for Chinese investors, the average Malaysian just can't afford to purchase one. An uproar was generated by the flood of Chinese investors, which opponents of the project saw as a new type of colonialism. In order to prevent foreigners from acquiring property in Forest City, Mahathir Mohamad, the new prime minister, enacted a prohibition. Foreigners began abandoning the city in large numbers, discouraging prospective investment. In light of Malaysia's migration control order, new investors were not allowed to settle there. Due to the uncertainty, many previous investors withdrew from the project. The COVID-19 pandemic affected Forest City's development, with construction delays and fewer than 10 homes being sold. The project's creators disclosed their intention to increase sales by concentrating on domestic clients. Less than 500 individuals were actually residing in the residential complexes at the beginning of 2020, which is a small number given that Forest City is intended to house 700,000 people. Additionally, Country Garden fired almost 1,000 of its Malaysian employees in the previous year, a sign of the project's dramatic decline in fortunes. To this day, Forest City continues to face criticism and controversy, with concerns about its impact on the environment and local communities. As it stands today, it's safe to say that Forest City is a pointless megaproject, despite developers continuing to move forward with plans for expansion. What do you think about these megaprojects? Were they a waste of money? Do any of these have a chance of becoming useful in the future? Let us know in the comments below. If you're interested in more content like this, be sure to check out our video about the most expensive construction mistakes in history. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.